Welcome, everyone. I'm Rob Sahutsky.
And I'm Zach Miles. You're listening to Babble of the Beltway.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Jaguars beat the Buffalo Bills. All right, that's going to wrap up this week's podcast. Thank you for listening. Follow us on social media, and we will see you next week. No, we're just kidding. We're actually going to do a full podcast this week. We are a little bit shook, as the kids are saying. We are shook by a lot of the events that happened this week. Can't really process not only that game, but a couple of the other games that happened this week. So if you haven't guessed it already, our focus in weekend recap is going to be the upsets, because 5 teams got one-way tickets to Upset City.
Upset City!
Nice. I'm going to clip that, by the way, and save that for future podcasts whenever we need that sound.
Okay, that sounds good to me.
After that intro, I feel like I'm obligated to start us off by talking about the Bills and Jaguars game. Zach, did you get to watch this game?
I didn't, but I followed it very closely from Twitter and everything else. So it was a nightmare. Is everything that I read. What about you? Did you get to watch it at all?
Unfortunately, I did not, because it was on at the same time as the Ravens game. But from the highlights that I was able to watch, this was a defensive battle, to say the least, on both sides of the ball. Buffalo scored on their opening drive and would not see a point for the rest of the game, because who were they facing? The sturdy defensive warlords, the Jacksonville Jaguars, number 1 ranked defense in my heart. Oh my God. Go ahead.
I think the craziest thing from this whole game is the same thing that was going around. I've never seen the Twitterverse for the NFL, the NFL itself, and all NFL media be so united in saying Josh Allen kicked the poo out of Josh Allen, which is hilarious, because this is what we all hoped for back when Josh Allen was a first-round pick for the Jags years ago. Yeah. But who in the right mind ever thought the Jags would beat the Bills? Josh Allen did.
Not only that, but in such a dominant fashion. It wasn't some like freak play, a couple weird like special teams touchdowns that you usually see in these upsets. It was just a raw defensive domination. Josh Allen sacked Josh Allen. Josh Allen recovered a fumble. Josh Allen picked off Josh Allen. It's if I were to tell you in this game that Josh Allen had a career game, your instinctive reaction would most likely be, wow, how many touchdowns did he throw? Like 6, 7? Wrong, Josh Allen. Like he got the triple double of the NFL, a sack, a fumble recovery, and an interception. Like it's insane. And to think that one of the worst teams in football did this against one of the best teams in football completely blows my mind. But I will say that there have been some hints that something like this was possible. Now, what I mean by that is Buffalo has shown that they don't run the ball. You don't really have to worry about them running the ball. And it's not that they can't run, although sometimes they can't. I've seen them be successful running the ball in previous games. It's that they choose not to. So remember, this game was 6-9, and Jaguars got their field goal late in the fourth quarter. So for most of this game, it was either tied or within like 3 points. So why is it that Josh Allen is passing the ball 47 times? They're not down 21 points. This is a neck and neck game, and he's passing 47 times, and he's also running it 5 times. So 52 of these snaps, he is directly the one doing what needs to be done. His running backs combined only had 9 carries. So 52 to 9 is who is getting the ball. and his running backs are only getting 2.5 yards a run. So this is, I feel like the Bills almost usurped like the Ravens as the team that completely relies on their quarterback to play offense, defense, special teams, run it and throw it. I don't understand what the Bills are thinking. You can't pass every single down every single week and expect things to work out. So upset city, welcome the Bills. This draws some serious questions about their team, and if you've been watching power rankings around the NFL, the Bills have gotten dropped
They've plummeted
pretty significantly in power rankings after this, as they deserve to.
Yeah.
They basically got exposed by the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, do I think the Bills are going to bounce back and still be a really strong team? Of course. They have a top-tier defense and an explosive offense, but you know what? You might want to take a seat this week, Bills fans, because the only thing that's getting thrown through tables is Josh Allen, thanks to Josh Allen. All right, you are very passionate about the Sunday night game. It was an amazing game, by the way. Tell us about Titans and Rams, Zach.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. One thing I was going to say about the Bills is that they do not run a balanced offense. And then I was going to talk about the Titans and how they don't run a balanced offense, or at least they used to not, because the team that was formerly known as the Tennessee Derrick Henrys has earned their name back. And it's bananas to me because it wasn't the offense. The offense wasn't the reason why the Titans won this game. It was the defense. They were pummeling Matt Stafford. Now, there were two kind of phantom roughing the passer calls against Aaron Donald / the Rams. And I can acknowledge, and we'll talk about this a little bit later too, about how the officiating in the NFL has been a total joke, especially this past weekend. But I mean, wow, the Titans were just good. They were good. This was probably my favorite game this past week. And I watched like 4 games. So it was probably my favorite game to watch. And the Titans just look so dominant. It's crazy because if you would have told me a month ago when they lost to the Jets that the Titans were going to beat all the good teams, or maybe it was a month and a half ago at this point, all the good teams on their schedule, I would say you're crazy. But that's what they're doing. They're stepping up to the plate when the games matter the most. And those are the teams that go far. Those are the teams that tend to win in the playoffs, in the Super Bowl. Those are the teams that show up when they need to. Now, you have teams that play down to their level of competition, which unfortunately it seems like this Titans team is similar to that. But I mean, I don't know. I don't know how to explain it, man. I mean, the offense, like I said before, it didn't look great. Ryan Tannehill threw a pick. He did just enough to continue to allow this team to exist and to survive. I mean, Julio Jones had a few catches and he had like 4 catches. A.J. Brown had a few catches. It was just a very balanced offensive attack that you would expect from Ryan Tannehill maybe 3 years ago, pre-Derrick Henry. But like, I'm impressed, to say the least. I'm not going to curse them the way that I've cursed every other team that I like. You know what I mean? I was really passionate about the Chargers a few weeks ago. I was like, man, they are my number 1 team. Nope, they are not the number 1 team in the NFL. So anytime that I go out here and I say, hey, I love this team, they tend to fall off a cliff and not do great for the rest of the season, or at least for a few weeks at a time. So I'm not going to sit here and say that I love the Tennessee Derrick Henrys, aka the Tennessee Titans, a bunch, but I'm a fan of what they're doing. I'm a fan of the fact that they made Matt Stafford look like he belonged in Detroit again, and they made Matt Stafford look like Jared Goff. I mean, yeah, Matt Stafford had some of the ugliest picks I've seen in a long time. You know what I mean? Like in that sack in the end zone when he was he pulled a Carson Wentz, except it wasn't a galaxy brain moment. He wasn't trying to win the game. He was just trying to get rid of the ball. When as a veteran quarterback, you should understand you don't throw the ball half-heartedly into the middle of the field when you're getting knocked down in the end zone. You just hold on to that. You just take the L, you take the 2 points, and you move on with your life. But Tennessee, they just, in my opinion, it was probably one of the most impressive victories that I've seen in a long time against a good team, because they're not a bad team. The Rams are not a bad team. They're a darn good team, man. And I expect them to bounce back, but yeesh, you know?
I think what I saw in this game, I still think the Rams are the better team here. I think that the Titans caught them sleeping. I think the Titans are going to lose a significant amount of steam without Derrick Henry. I think what really caught the Rams was that, one, they were unsure what the Tennessee offense was going to look like without Derrick Henry, so they kind of went in blind with that respect. But really, this game was a story of two plays, the back-to-back picks. That completely flipped this game on its head, gave Tennessee the advantage to play the way they wanted to. I think that if the Rams and Titans were to play again today, I think that the Rams would beat them. And I'm not really hesitant in that belief. I think this really was more of an anomaly than a case. I think that we're going to start seeing what the Titans' struggles are without Derrick Henry. But moving on, we have the Raiders and Giants. Now, I personally don't even know if I consider this to be an upset based on the events of the past few weeks. I think the Giants have shown to be an up-and-coming team, and I think the Raiders have shown that the wheels are kind of coming off. But it still is an upset. Most people pick the Raiders. Vegas definitely picked the Raiders. Well, obviously, for it's literally their team. But I saw the Giants starting to claw back, so this was not the most shocking thing to me. I actually picked them in my personal picks, but the Raiders, wow, the wheels have fallen apart on this franchise. They started out 3-0. They beat the Ravens. They beat the Steelers. Seems like really strong start to their season through a really tough strength of schedule. And then they have gone 2-3 since then, dropping games to the Bears and now the Giants. They also lost to the Chargers. We're really not sure. They're somewhere in the middle, but the Raiders should not have lost to those three teams. That's not a good look for them. And what does it come down to? It comes down to off-the-field distractions. Now, I know every single player, when they go to their press conference, has the same rehearsed lines. We're not concerned about the outside noise. We're not listening to the media. We're doing us. We're focusing on us. That's not what the on-field production shows. And even if you aren't distracted, losing players and losing your head coach and having them ripped away from your team, it has an impact. It affects how you play. It affects the play call. I mean, Think about this. Kenyon Drake was not used under John Gruden. Kenyon Drake, heavily used without John Gruden. It literally changes the way that your team operates. So this is a different team in the past 5 weeks than it was in the first 3 weeks. Now, I think over the long run, as we get more of a sample size, we'll know, like, is this better for the team or not? Are they a better team than they were at the start? I don't think that's a yes. I think that they lost Henry Ruggs, who is really their big, deep threat. I believe they just signed Deshaun Jackson. I'm not 100% sure about that.
Yes. Yeah, they did. He's wearing number 1 again.
Yeah.
Which, honestly, no player deserves to wear it more than him. I mean, he's the best deep threat of all time. But
they have at least taken action to replace their deep threat loss with Henry Ruggs, and we'll see if that pays off or not. I think obviously Henry Ruggs was younger, probably a little bit faster, but
I mean he ran the fastest combine in NFL history, so fastest 40 in combine history.
It's unfortunate, but I mean the Raiders team has shown a lack of discipline, and I'm not even talking on the field. I'm talking off the field discipline. Arrests, apparently death threats, inappropriate comments. It's too much for a team to have to deal with these issues. I think they're a good team, but they're going to struggle and they're going to drop a couple more games in the middle of this season due to their off the field issues.
Yeah, it's really sad to see for so many different reasons, of course. I mean, the Henry Ruggs crash, y'all have probably heard about it. We're not going to spend too much time talking about a lot of these things, just going to touch on it. But obviously very tragic, awful for, the young woman who lost her life and her dog, and also everybody involved in that situation. But there's that with Henry Ruggs, and then Damon Arnett with his multiple off-field incidents now where there's a video released of him brandishing a gun threatening to kill someone on video. That's the 2 first-round picks from the 2020 NFL draft for the Raiders. Yeah. So you have the 12th overall pick and the 19th overall pick are no longer on their respective teams. I believe their 2nd, 3rd, and 4th round picks have either been hurt, cut, or released. Or traded. I'm pretty sure there's only one one draft, 7 selections. 3 of them remain on the roster 18 months later. One of them is on IR. On IR. So yeah, exactly what I was writing down when we were doing the research before was that 2 of them remain on the active roster because one is on IR right now and has been hurt pretty much his whole entire time in the NFL. So the Raiders' poor performance on the field, it's just going to keep happening. Not to be redundant, because obviously you touched on all of it before, but it's just going to continue to happen, I think, for the rest of the year. I would not be shocked if Mike Mayock loses his job. And honestly, it's probably just going to be a result of the situation in which that he was in. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
He couldn't do anything about John Gruden's emails. He couldn't do anything about Henry Ruggs. He couldn't do anything about Damon Arnett. But when you're surrounded by that much, sometimes it's better to just start from the top again, you know?
Yeah.
And I could really see that happening. So good on the Giants for coming out with a dub, but awful for the Raiders. They're just in a terrible situation. I don't see how their season gets much better from this point on.
Yeah, and good life lesson to learn there. It's that your actions have consequences, and not just for you. Oftentimes the people who are associated with you and who work with you are punished by your poor decisions. So but moving on, Falcons, Saints, another upset city. The Saints, of course, are now without Jameis Winston. He will be out for the whole season, which a lot of teams have become familiar with those words, out for the season at this point, unfortunately. But
sadly,
the Falcons, on the other hand, are trending upward.
Which is crazy.
Right. They had a very, very rough start to the season. I mean, they got blown out by the Eagles pretty badly in week one in Detroit Lion fashion, let's say. But Matt Ryan's starting to look like the Matt Ryan of old. And he put on a pretty big show against the Saints. The Saints, of course, are the anomaly of every other week, as we've pointed out on this podcast. That has not yet changed. It is still every other week with them. They beat Washington. Zach was very upset about that. You heard all about his feelings on that. On the
I was
podcast.
there, man. It was the disrespect of me being there. That's really ultimately what did me in. Keep going though. Sorry.
Yeah, and they're just such a flip-floppy team that I cannot make a read on them at all. I don't know if they're good. I don't know if they're bad. I think they're somewhere in the middle, maybe.
Yeah, I probably like the 14 to 20 range when it comes to overall ranking. If we were to have to power rank them, I think.
And I mean, honestly, right now, on the Saints flip a coin, but what do you think about the Falcons' offense, and specifically Kyle Pitts?
I mean, Kyle Pitts is the real deal. I know that he's only had 1 touchdown so far, but I read a very interesting statistic that Kyle Pitts has the exact same yards halfway through this season that Rob Gronkowski did his entire rookie season. Now, Gronk had 10 touchdowns, but Gronk had 576 or 546. I can't remember which one it is. 576 yards for his whole rookie year. Kyle Pitts has it right now. Kyle Pitts is already getting double teamed and triple teamed. People are carrying the safety over the top to try and make sure that he's blanketed in case he gets by his initial corners. Kyle Pitts is a wide receiver disguised as a tight end. Kyle Pitts should probably be a wide receiver for fantasy football purposes. But if y'all drafted him, take the blessing of a tight end who's actually a wide receiver and continue to hold that very close to your heart. The guy's a monster. I haven't thought this highly of a prospect in a long time. And one of my favorite, I've brought him up before, one of my favorite Twitter follows, RayGQ, RayGQCue. It's weird, but I don't know. It's probably close to it. Anyways.
Just Google will correct you.
Just Google it and it'll find it. Exactly. But, he was so big on Pitts last year that I watched him in his last year in Florida. I mean, the guy is virtually, I'm not going to say he's unstoppable because obviously he can be stopped, but he is a threat every single play. And I'm super excited about him. I'm excited about the development of Cordarrelle Patterson into a real receiver for the first time in his career. I mean, he's another guy who's listed as a running back that should probably just be a wide receiver. I mean, he ran the ball 9 times and got 10 yards. Then he had 6 catches for 136 yards. So, like, what position does he play?
Yeah.
So the Falcons offense is kind of turning back the clock and looking like how it did when Julio was in his prime back in like 2014, 2015. And it's weird to say that. I mean, they're not the powerhouse that they were, but they're showing shades of at least being competent again, which is really nice to see. I'm not a huge Matt Ryan fan. I never have been. I never liked that Matty Ice nickname that he got because I thought it was, I don't know. I thought he wasn't clutch. Everybody was like, oh, he's got ice in his veins. And I was just like, he loses too many playoff games. You know what I mean? Like, you got to be convincing. But I mean, it's just something where I really love what the Falcons, have done for their offense this year. Hopefully Calvin Ridley comes back in a good, healthy space mentally because he's out for at least 3 games. My guess is he'll be out for longer than that. But hopefully he comes back in a good mental space, and him, Cordarrelle, and Pitts, if they somehow end up in the playoffs, because right now the Falcons actually have, dude, they have a way to make it. If they end up making the playoffs, I really would love to see those 3 guys playing together. I think that would be a lot of fun.
And fun fact about Kyle Pitts, he is the number 7 ranked tight end in fantasy football, despite being double covered and triple covered on almost every play. That is insane.
It's bananas, dude.
That's insane.
Bananas.
Speaking of bananas, upset number 5. I would argue this was was it the least expected, or was it Bills? I can't decide.
I think the Bills was the least expected, but any close. Other if the Bills Jags didn't happen, this would have been the most unexpected.
I think when you if we were to wait for the fact that this game was 30-0 at one point in time, I would say this was
That's how I think it's more unexpected, is the amount of points that the Broncos scored on the Cowboys, and they shut them out until the fourth quarter. That's what's crazy.
Broncos Cowboys 30-16, and that 16 was all garbage time.
It was. Malik Turner had 2 touchdown catches. Y'all know who Malik Turner is? Didn't think so. Yeah, neither do most teams.
What team is he on?
I think the Cowboys. No, man, it's Malik Turner had 2 touchdowns thrown by Dak Prescott, obviously in the fourth. Dak, it's not that he didn't look like himself. It's just that the Cowboys defense was getting gashed, right? Like when you're looking at it, they lit up almost 200 yards rushing. Who does that when Teddy Bridgewater's the quarterback? I don't know, but they did it. I mean, how did you feel about it though? Sorry, I'm taking away the mantle from you right now.
Oh no, that's fine. I just was in a little bit of shock because obviously I was watching the Ravens game during this time, and I just see on the ticker at the bottom 30-0, and I'm just laughing because I don't think there's really anything else you can do in that situation other than laugh at how utterly ridiculous it is. This was a game where it looked like every single bad break humanly possible happened. The Cowboys failed, I think, like 3 fourth down conversions.
Yeah.
It's not supposed to happen like that. But I mean, shout out to Denver. Their defense stood up. I mean, it's not easy holding a team like the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys have probably the most explosive offense in the NFL when they're fully healthy. They have weapons at every single position. Now, maybe we can dismiss this as Dak just being rusty, but I don't know.
I don't know, man. I don't think he was. I mean, in my opinion, I know he missed it was 1 game, right? He ended up missing 1 game. So, and he missed a whole season last year and started off this year on fire. So I don't think necessarily it was that. I think maybe a little bit, but I think it was mostly just the Dallas defense. And even the Dallas defense has a stud. I don't know if y'all are aware of who Micah Parsons is. He was their first round pick this year. Fell in the draft due to character concerns because of a lot of his conduct at Penn State. More so in the locker room as opposed to out of the locker room. The guy was known as like kind of a bully, this real kind of mean person that people didn't necessarily want to play with. That's all obviously just hearsay because he's balling. I mean, he's probably been the most impactful defensive rookie in the NFL.
He is a bully just to the offense.
Yeah, he is. I mean, he had 2.5 sacks. He had like 9 or 10 tackles. I mean, the guy is just a disruptor. He is what I would classify as a playmaker. He started off the season as a linebacker, then he shifted to defensive end, a position he had not played since like Pop Warner, since he was like 8 years old, because of who he's played for and how dominant he's been at linebacker. And now it's just a situation where they're putting him wherever they can fit him. Obviously, it didn't work this game because they were down 30 to nothing at one point. But with all things said and done, I mean, the Cowboys, they showed some weaknesses. I don't know if this is a game where if we were to look back, kind of like, you know how you were saying with the Titans, the Titans Rams, if they were to play again today, obviously they'd be very sore. But if they were to play again today, the Rams would have won that game. I don't know if we can say the same thing about this game with the Cowboys.
Yeah. So what I saw, and I think the primary issue here is Trayvon Diggs. Now, we all know that he is a monster athlete and a big playmaker, but the reason he's such a big playmaker is because he bites hard. He plays super aggressive, and he goes for the ball. See ball, get ball. The problem with that is that when you tend to go all in, going for an interception, double moves are usually a touchdown or a pretty big gain. And teams have shown that despite the fact that he is an interception monster and he's going to be there fighting for that ball every single time, his coverage isn't the best, and that aggression can be used against him. So teams are not shying away from throwing to Diggs. They're actually doubling down at throwing at Diggs because they think, yeah, maybe you'll intercept once a game, but if we get 2 touchdowns on you, that's a fair trade.
Absolutely.
I'll take it.
100%.
Yeah.
And I'm smiling. I don't know, because most of y'all don't watch the YouTube, which we're going to be changing the format in which we do, by the way. But I'm smiling thinking about that because, Washington, when they suck, my only respite from that is when the Cowboys are bad. And this week, the Cowboys were bad. And Trayvon Diggs is a good player, but man, he can be so bad. And that makes me really happy because I like seeing him get burned because I don't like the Cowboys. At the end of the day, though, happy for my buddy Jeff. He is a Broncos fan. I'll refer to him as Jeff the Broncos fan whenever I bring him up from now on. He wanted them to lose every game for the rest of the year, and they continue to win. So sorry that they continue to spite you.
We'll quickly go over the games that you don't care about. No, I'm mostly kidding. But the games that were predominantly blowouts, the Browns blew out the Bengals pretty horrifically, ran all over them at will. Nick Chubb had very good game. A little bit of a surprise for me, probably less of a surprise to you. I think I was a little bit higher on the Bengals than you were.
Yeah, I'm not super high on them still. Yeah.
Colts beat the
Jets.
Daylights out of the Jets. It was, I think, like 45 to like 18 at one point. It was... I will say, though, the Jets have had back-to-back weeks where a different backup got 400-plus passing yards.
Which is crazy.
I don't know what's going on there, but that's not looking too good for their draft selection. So
RIP Zach Wilson's career.
Because your second string did 400 yards. And then your third string dropped 400 yards, but
your first string's like 150
and 5 picks. So that's not good. So
what does that say?
Also, someone had pointed out that Adam Gase, the quote-unquote offensive mastermind, had an atrociously bad offense but a good defense, and then Robert Saleh, the defensive mastermind, had an atrociously bad defense but a surprisingly potent offense. So I don't know what it is, but
doesn't make sense.
It is what it is. Speaking of atrociously bad, the Patriots beat the Panthers very badly. Sam Darnold is awful. I saw some improvement from him in the first 3 games. Really thought the Panthers were a good team. He has shown that he had 3 fluke games. He has completely regressed to I am seeing ghosts from his Jets time. And he is single-handedly dragging this team from a playoff contender directly down into the dirt, and Robbie Anderson is letting him know it.
Absolutely, which is great because good for Robbie Anderson. But yeah, Sam Darnold is... I remember like week 1 or 2, I was just like, I don't know, man. He's still doing some of those things that I feel like he's watched before, or that he's done before when I've watched him. And then it was like he was the leading touchdown rusher in the NFL for those 3 weeks. And I was just like, this isn't going to go well. Like, this isn't going to end well. Yeah, big time.
Other group that folded, the San Francisco 49ers got dunked on by the Cardinals backups. Can't really explain that either.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me. I really thought that without Kyler, that the Cardinals would have lost, and without Chase Edmonds too. Chase Edmonds got hurt like halfway through the game.
DeAndre Hopkins.
And DeAndre Hopkins wasn't playing, man. Like, it's crazy that this is just a thing. But you know what? The Cardinals won. 49ers are bad. Mike Shanahan's kid, what's his name?
Kyle.
Oh my God, Kyle. Yeah, he's a nightmare. I hope he gets fired. Free Trey Lance, free Brandon Ayuk, free all my guys out there, and give them an opportunity to be on a winning team.
Yeah, by the way, Ayuk looked really good. It's almost like they should have been using him all year instead of putting him in the doghouse, because he showed he's hyper talented last year. Just get him on a better team, I guess.
Yeah.
And finally, the Steelers beat the Bears in the dumpster fire game of the week on Monday Night Football. Thankfully, this week we are filming on Tuesday, so we did get to see the Monday night game. Atrociously bad. Justin Fields showed significant improvement, especially in the second half, but the referees largely determined the game, giving well over 100 yards of penalty gift to the Steelers and ultimately letting them win the game because they called a hilariously bad taunting penalty on the Bears defense after making a third down stop. That first down led to a field goal. The Steelers won by 2 points. And also the referee hip checked the
Cassius Marsh. So the guy who got the taunting penalty.
We'll be making fun of that later, so don't you worry. We'll be right back on that.
Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Up next, we have Earth, Wind, and Fire. Who is this week's Earth, Zach?
Oh man, one of the most fun guys to watch in the NFL right now, who's won this award before, Jonathan Taylor. Calm down, JT. Relax yourself, because this man is unreal. He had 19 carries for 172 yards and 2 touchdowns, and he's a stud. I mean, he's going to finish the year as the RB1 in fantasy football. He's going to finish the year as the best running back in the NFL now that Derrick Henry's out of the picture. Out of the talk. What does that even mean? Out of the picture. And it's just crazy to think that this is a guy who for like the first 6 games wasn't getting a ton of carries, and he's still not getting a ton. If you give him another 6 carries, he probably has another 30 to 40 yards a game. I mean, the guy could easily average 200 yards a game, and I believe that. He had 1 fumble, but he didn't end up losing it. He ended up getting it back. And it's like, that was the only real concern for him coming out of college. That, and people were like, oh, he's not that fast. But like, dude, his breakaway speed is faster than almost anybody else's in the NFL. Sometimes that game speed is faster and that tape speed is faster than your combine speed. Mm-hmm. So JT, absolute monster, helps that Carson Wentz is starting to ball again. So honestly, keep an eye out for the Colts, man. I think that they're going to make a stretch run because of this week's Earth winner, Jonathan Taylor.
And Carson Wentz is starting to ball too. Him and Michael Pittman have quite a connection.
They do. They really do.
Speaking of that air game connection, the Wind Award, another repeat. We're starting to see almost all these same teams over and over and over again in Earth, Wind, and Fire. It's crazy.
It's almost like they're good or something.
I know. Justin Herbert for returning to glory. Now, Justin had a rough stretch of 3 games. Didn't really look himself. Just not all that impressive. But wow, did he turn it back on? So it was not the most impressive win over Philadelphia. It was 27-24, but his play was incredibly impressive. 32 for 38 for 356 yards and 2 touchdowns with a 123 passer rating. He played as close to a flawless game as you can. Honestly impressive. And as much as Philadelphia is kind of a joke, and we tend to make fun of them a lot, and yeah, they're 3-6, their defense isn't the problem. Their offense has been the problem. So the fact that he diced up their defense like this was quite impressive, especially considering that the mismatch here was that the Chargers defense can't stop the run, and Philadelphia showed that they're just going to try to run more. So there was quite a mismatch on the other side of the ball, but didn't matter. Herbert played as close to perfect as you can. Congratulations, Justin Herbert and the Chargers on this week's Wind Award.
Next up, we got Fire. This is usually one of my favorites. And the
Not a
Fire
repeat, by
Award.
the way. This
This
one
is
has
not a
never
repeat.
happened before.
This is a brand new thing. The Fire Award goes to Josh Allen and the Jacksonville Jaguars for holding Josh Allen and the Bills to 6 points. This is the only time we'll ever be able to make these jokes, I think. So I'm just going to keep rolling with
Embrace
them,
it.
even though I see them all online.
Saxonville, baby.
Josh Allen, obviously the defensive end, not the quarterback, had pretty much the triple-double of the NFL for defense. He had a sack, an interception, and a forced fumble. They kept the Bills to 6 points, and that is already a difficult thing to do. But when you're the Jacksonville Jaguars, that sounds impossible.
Mm-hmm.
But they did it. They did it, man. They were like, it's like when Pinocchio was like, I'm a real boy. They were like, wow, we're a real football team and a real defense. We can do it. Sorry, I must have hurt your ears because I saw you.
Moment in television history.
But honestly, man, they deserved it. Congratulations to Josh Allen and the Jacksonville, aka Saxonville defense. Y'all should be proud of yourselves. I hope one of you listens to this, and I know y'all don't. But if one of you were to, we love you.
Also, Urban Meyer was caught smiling for the first time in 3 months. Congratulations to Urban Meyer on finally letting those pearly whites show. Let's move on to the rest of the awards. Zach wrote this one, and it is my personal favorite. It is the NFL Totally Isn't Rigged Due to Sports Betting Award. Little bit lengthy. First time we've done this one. Hopefully the last time we've done this one, but I wouldn't be surprised. This award goes to Tony Correnti and the rest of the officials during last night's Monday Night Football Bears-Steelers game. Honestly, just disgusting. I'm so disgusted I can't even say the word disgusting. That's how bad it is. Just witnessing some of the horrendous calls, bad calls on the Bears all night. Missed calls, by the way. Fields was literally just being beat up, shanked. God. I'm pretty sure he got stabbed at some point in time during that game, and the refs didn't do anything. But Cassius Marsh looked in the general direction of the opposing sideline, and so that is a 15-yard taunting penalty. That's an automatic first down. They also take your firstborn child. Just rough to watch. I know I had a lot of concerns about this. Zach did too. Sports betting will be the bane of the NFL, even if this wasn't actually rigged, which it probably wasn't.
I swear. It looks like it was, though.
There are going to be serious concerns and questions brought up due to the nature of sports betting in the future. And if this isn't it, I mean, it will happen sometime in the future. It is far too easy for millions of dollars to take one official and have them make a couple bad calls at the wrong time. It's too easy, especially with this new 15-yard automatic first down taunting whenever I feel like you might have been taunting penalty.
Our well said, by the way, Rob. Well said, because I couldn't have said it better than myself. Next one, the I Did This to Myself award goes to Josh Allen for sacking, forcing a fumble, and intercepting himself.
More Josh Allen to Josh Allen jokes. We're just gonna go full into this one head
just
first.
Have to.
We're never gonna get this opportunity again. It's like the elite Joe Flacco jokes that we had last week. We're never gonna get that again. So we really have to double down, triple down, quadruple down if we can. We don't have any more scripted, but if we can improv one, we'll do it. Next up, we have the Hate the Player, Not the Game award, and this goes to Mac Jones for playing like everything the NFL thinks defenders are and attempting to injure Brian Burns of the Panthers. The ball was popped out. Brian Burns went to go for it, and Mac Jones basically grabbed onto his ankle and did the gator roll that you might see when an alligator jumps its prey in the Serengeti. It was incredibly dirty, incredibly petty, did result in an injury, just all around a very just inappropriate, unethical thing. Very dangerous to do as a quarterback, by the way, because defenders have a lot more opportunities to injure you than you do defenders. So I don't know if I would want to be sitting in the pocket with a reputation as a dirty player against defenders who can literally maul you. But of course, this is the NFL. If defenders breathe on an offensive player, that is a 75-yard automatic touchdown penalty. And if a offensive player does a gator roll and snaps your ankle in half and then shanks you a couple times, that's not going to be a penalty. It'll just be a light fine the next day after. So
you're really all in on this shanking thing this week. Huh?
I am. I saw.
You've been watching Prison Break, right?
I saw too many dirty plays happen this week. It got that longest yard image in my head, and I just can't get over that. But
Fair
yeah,
enough.
This is how bad reputations start. Belichick tried to cover and say, "Oh, well, Mac Jones thought he had the ball." Yeah, you thought he had the ball, which is why you grabbed his ankle and tried to break it, right? Because the fact that he had the ball, that would have made it okay, right? Just break his ankle.
Yeah, it was disgusting to watch, man. It was disgusting to see. And all right, so I had a couple buddies who had asked me about it separately, and I didn't stick up for Mac Jones. I did say that if you pay attention to football, you will see that a lot of defenders and people on the offensive line do this whenever they're in a situation like where they have to make a play.
Right.
But more often than not, it doesn't result in an injury. And just like it happens with the Patriots when they record other teams, when they deflate footballs, you can say as much as you want that other teams and players do this stuff, but until it actually causes an issue, it's fine, but it caused an issue. Somebody got hurt.
Yes.
Brian Burns got hurt. One of the best young defensive ends in the NFL right now. Ton of talent. Pretty upset that he would do that.
And it wasn't like it was a tackle. Defenders oftentimes tackle low, and that's how it happens. This was, he was on the ground and grabbed a guy's ankle.
And rolled his whole body to try and twist it.
Pretty sure that's like a tripping penalty anyway, but I guess not. But
nope, not for a quarterback.
Not for a quarterback, apparently. Moving on, before we get
next
too upset.
award. And y'all know me when I get upset. Our next award is the 300 But I Lived award. And this goes to Lamar Jackson for effectively beating the Vikings. I'm not going to say by himself, but as he's done the entire year, and as Rob and I were talking about actually in between takes, Lamar Jackson has beaten every team pretty much by himself. He's masking a bad defense. He's masking, poor offensive output by running backs, a bad offensive line. The dude's a monster. He's like rewriting history. It's like as if Leonidas lived in the battle of 300.
He beat the million Persians.
Yes, he beat the million Persians by himself. That is Lamar Jackson.
And finally, we have what is known as the Backups Smackups Award. This is a brand new one where your second string roster members beat the ever-living crap out of someone else's first-string roster members. And this is going to go to the Arizona Cardinals for absolutely just dominating the San Francisco 49ers without Murray, without Hopkins, without Chase Edmonds. I mean, this was a bad look for the 49ers. The Cardinals outclassed them quite significantly. By the way, shout out to Cliff Kingsbury for getting a taunting penalty. That's hilarious. I think it was Josh Norman and Cliff Kingsbury both got.
Yeah, they were having like friendly banter or whatever.
And the refs were like, "Did you hear mild trash talk with a smile on their faces?" That's a 15-yard penalty.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, if you want to know how much penalties hurt defenders and help offense, due to the nature of the enforcement, the on-the-field penalty goes first, which means automatic first down. And then the second penalty goes, which means that despite the fact that they both had equal penalties, it was still an automatic first down instead of a cancellation. So
it's ridiculous.
Good time to be an offense in this league.
Ravens Update.
Up next, we have the Ravens Update. This week, pretty much the same as every other week that we've ever had. The Ravens don't show up in the first quarter. They don't show up in the second quarter. They slightly kind of show up in the third quarter. In the fourth quarter, they're like, hey, by the way, we're the better team. And then in overtime, they win it with a Justin Tucker field goal. Where have I seen this before? Oh, my God. Another unnecessarily close game. I will say the Vikings are better than their record shows. I don't think that they're, 3-5 team or whatever. I don't think that they're actually that bad. Most of their games, they've lost by one score. They should have beaten the Arizona Cardinals. So like, I'm not going to sit here and say that they're not a good team. They have a lot of pieces in different places to make them good. They also have a lot of big injuries on defense. But the Ravens, I'm starting to see a trend here. I know Zach touched on it a little bit earlier, but the running backs can no longer run the ball. The wide receiver core is average, maybe slightly above average to good if you count in how talented Mark Andrews is. The defense, while it is standing up, it is letting up big plays fairly consistently now. The Bengals game, 5 touchdowns, all of 20 yards or more. This game, Dalvin Cook broke loose for a massive run. Justin Jefferson caught a touchdown on a massive pass. You remember back to the Colts game, Jonathan Taylor, 70-something yard pass play? We're starting to see these trends. And as Zach had hinted, we are becoming more and more of a one-man show. Our defense can't hold anymore, so our offense has to put up points and come from behind. And by the way, can I just say that narrative that Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens can't play from behind? I don't know if we had some like Michael Jordan and I took that personally moment, but it feels like we are intentionally getting behind so that we can make these epic comeback victories just to make people shut up about that talking point. If that's what you guys are doing, I think we're cool there. You can stop doing this right now before like half of the people in Baltimore go into cardiac arrest from watching your games. It's too much. It is genuinely stressful. Thankfully, our key to the victory, Sergi attending the Ravens game, pulled through again. Sergi is 3-0 when attending Ravens games, and in all 3 of those games, he bailed in the fourth quarter when he realized that he is cursed, and we then made a comeback win.
Did he really bail again in the fourth?
He did. He did.
Oh my god.
Yeah, he had that in the notes.
Wow.
Yep. So
Serge.
we figured it out. It's Sergi literally has to leave or we lose. And that's just where we are as a team right now. So if you ever see Sergi at M&T Bank Stadium, please escort him out when we're down by 20 points. We need enough time for Lamar to lead a comeback. So the running game was effective, 247 yards on the ground by Baltimore, but must I remind you that over 100 of those yards was from Lamar Jackson. It's also important to note that our running game was largely ineffective from our running backs until the fourth quarter when the Vikings defense was legitimately gassed. One of the keys to victory in this game was in the third quarter when things were looking pretty bad. Lamar Jackson led the offense to a longer than 10-minute drive for a touchdown. That is genuinely difficult for defenses. Now, yes, the special teams let up a not great touchdown at the start of the second half. I would actually argue that that was something that benefited the Ravens and was largely one of the contributing factors to why we won that game. If their offense had gone out and done maybe like a 6-7 minute drive and scored, I think we would have been in trouble. But thankfully, it was a very quick drive. The Ravens had actually one time of possession in the first half. In the second half, they extended that significantly, especially in the third quarter with that 10-minute drive. The Vikings defense clearly gassed. They're starting to give Le'Veon Bell, that's right, 2002 stud Le'Veon Bell started having a big game in the fourth quarter. Their defense truly winded, and I think that was a massive contributing factor. The Bengals game was extremely upsetting 2 weeks ago. The start of this game was extremely upsetting coming off of a bye. The defense is just letting up too many big plays. Deshaun Elliott is now on IR on the defense. That's injury number like 300 or something at this point.
Yeah.
It's kind of insane. And he had a torn pectoral and bicep, I think. I just have to question, like, what are they doing in the weight room in Baltimore? It genuinely makes me nervous that, and the fact that our strength and conditioning coach still has a job after what has happened and all of the non-contact injuries and everything blows my mind. Absolutely blows my mind.
At least the strength and conditioning coach in Baltimore didn't have a raid on his team facility.
Fair.
by the FBI due to involvement, or the DEA, excuse me, due to involvement with narcotics.
Fair. That is a fair counterpoint. But to sum things up, the Ravens are 6-2. That's great, right? Wins are wins. This team finds a way to win. They just have this clutch factor. And really, the difference between the Ravens and the Vikings, I don't think the Ravens are a better team than the Vikings. I think the difference is that the Ravens have a clutch factor, and the Vikings absolutely do not have a clutch factor. And in the NFL, that's the difference between a 3-5 team and a 6-2 team. It's significant. The Ravens have a lot of issues that they need to shore up, though. I think our defense has been exposed in the last 2 games. I do have concerns with Lamar Jackson's workload. I feel like he is our entire offensive production, and he's also responsible for keeping the defense off the field. If Lamar Jackson has a bad day, the Ravens will lose. If Lamar Jackson does not have a heroic fourth quarter, the Ravens will lose. If Lamar Jackson gets injured, the Ravens' season is over. He, in my opinion, I don't think you can argue anyone else right now is the MVP in the NFL. Our team is entirely reliant on Lamar. Without him, we're maybe like 4-13, I would predict. With Lamar Jackson, we'll probably end up being maybe 12-5. He is that significant. So hopefully this team gets its act together, because there are just a lot of things that are not looking good, and I don't know how much longer we can rely on Lamar Jackson to bail us out every single week. And for Justin Tucker, he has to be automatic or we lose. So I don't think we can rely on 2 players consistently. Hopefully we get our act together. I have some optimism. We can turn this ship around, but a lot of injuries piling up, and we need to get to work.
Washington football team, I guess, update.
And on to the Washington football team update. The NFL did a wonderful thing for fans all around the world this week. They didn't make Washington play, which is why I'm happy. It was a win. It was fantastic. It was the best week of the season so far for this team.
So inspirational.
The future is now.
The future is now. For our next segment, we have The Future is Now, where we look into our podcast crystal ball and tell you who will win next week's game. After the stressful update that I gave you, I am going to let Zach start us off with the Ravens-Dolphins Thursday Night Football game.
So we are a firm believer here that the Ravens should win this game against the Dolphins, but also to expect yet another completely unnecessary overtime game after the Ravens fail to show up in the first half. Still, Ravens over Dolphins on the foot of Justin Tucker.
And a 75-yard field goal or something. All right, Saints and Titans. So these are both teams that unexpectedly lose to bad teams, but then they beat good teams. So how does that really work out when they play each other? Not really sure. So our podcast, we're going to choose the Titans here, but I do want to remind you, this is the Saints on week. Last week was off. Next week is on. So expect a little bit closer game. We'll see what happens here. But really, flip a coin. We'll go Titans, I guess. I don't know.
Next up, we have Bills-Jets. If the Bills hadn't lost to the Jags, I'd probably say the Bills, but... Oh, actually, it's still the Jets. We're going to go with the Bills, guys.
Yeah, honestly, at this point, if the Jets upset another team and throw another 400-yard passing game and beat the Bills, we're just going to end the podcast. We're never going to do an episode again. We're just going to retire. All right, Lions-Steelers. The Steelers' defense is legitimate, and the Lions are led by the gaff-prone Goff, which, by the way, that's really catchy. I might actually coin
I like that. Yeah, I saw that. I was like, "Ooh, that's pretty nice."
Gaff-prone Goff. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Lions likely going to turn the ball over several times. Is DeAndre Swift good enough to carry Goff? He is not. Steelers win.
After that, we have Jags Colts. Jags were magic this past week. They somehow made magic happen, but Josh Allen isn't playing against Josh Allen this week. So, see, we found a way to do it again. JT's going to run for 200, man. Colts going to be, they're going to win by a lot.
Yeah. Buccaneers, Washington. We're just gonna say the Bucks win and move on. No joke here. I think the joke is already. It's a subtle joke.
The joke
that
is
you
the
just,
schedule. The joke is the game that's happening.
Yeah, we're just gonna say Bucks.
The note literally says ha, ha 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 ha, Bucks.
Yeah, no close game here like the playoffs last year. This is probably just gonna be bad.
Yeah. Browns, Patriots. Two rising teams, which is weird to think about when you think about the context of both teams over the past 20 years. But Baker without Odell is a different breed of Baker, and that's a fact. Browns win.
Yeah, I don't know if Odell was playing some like weird voodoo mind games in Baker's head, but man, he's different. Falcons, Cowboys. So this is weird now, right? This last week, 2 weeks ago, 3-4 weeks ago was easy. Now we're looking at a pretty weird question here. So it's tough, but do you think the Cowboys are just going to take that sitting down? I think they're going to have a big bounce back week. I think they're going to put the brakes on the Atlanta Falcons. We're going to say Cowboys redeem themselves, have a big comeback game. Cowboys win.
Panthers, Cardinals. Sam Darnold made Adam Gase look bad is the new narrative that we're going to start pushing here. Because that dude sucks. Cards are going to win regardless of Kyler's status. They beat the 49ers, of whom are better than the Panthers. So, yeah, go Cards all the way.
The Babble of the Beltway curse strikes again. Vikings, Chargers. The Vikings, they're a team where their record really is not accurate. It doesn't tell you how good of a team they are or the superstars they have on offense. Their defense is pretty injured, but they're a good team. They just lack that clutch factor. They can't be clutch when it matters. I don't know if it's Kirk Cousins. I don't know if it's Zimmer. I don't know what the issue is, but they lack that clutch factor, and Justin Herbert does not. So probably a close game. Chargers will win. Let's just say in the final minute.
Seahawks, Packers. Both Rodgers and Russell Wilson come back this week, and both lately have been doing and saying some pretty cringy things. Rodgers with his off the field whole everything over the past 2 weeks, if you've been paying attention.
Lying.
Yeah. And then Russell Wilson with these really strange self-indulgent videos. If you guys want to check them out, they're not like inappropriate. They're just really, I would use a curse word right now to really emphasize it, but we don't do that here. But they're just strange, man. I can't express it enough. Anyways, I'm getting away from the idea of this where we're predicting not who's the worst person to hang out with, but, you know, who it is that's going to win this game. We're going to go Seahawks beat the Packers.
Up next, Eagles, Broncos. And here we are again. Another one of those games where you just think you know, and then the NFL's like, you know nothing. You know nothing, Mr. Amateur Sports Analyst. Yikes. So yeah, Eagles have kind of hit that critical point that every team has to get to sooner or later. Win now or look a different direction from Jalen Hurts. Is Hurts actually the answer? I don't know. I'm not really sold that he is, and I think the fact that their wins come from run-heavy games does not help Hurts' case. They looked fairly competitive against the Chargers. The Broncos this week were very hot, beating the Cowboys. I'm going to say the Broncos might have figured some things out, and I think they're going to beat down the Eagles. Broncos win.
Second to last game here, we got Chiefs Raiders Sunday Night Football. You know, as we touched on earlier, Raiders are dealing with far too many distractions. There's not going to be jokes on this about anything like that. if Mahomes can get his act together and, the Chiefs can really reduce their turnovers, they can go back to being a contender. They just have to get that done. But either way, I think the Chiefs win. Divisional matchup against a team that's really struggling off the field more than it ever has.
And finally, Rams, 49ers, Monday Night Football. Two teams that got blown out. One is actually a good team and one deserved to get blown out. One likely will bounce back heavily. The other almost certainly will not. Trey Lance probably needs to be the starter for the 49ers at this point. Kyle Shanahan, I don't understand what he's doing. I feel like
he's a literal psychopath.
Flexing his ego. Brandon Ayuk on the sidelines when he's this hyper-talented wide receiver. Like, let's just bench our good players because they're in the doghouse and I have an ego issue. I don't like it. I don't like the 49ers. I'm selling. I think Rams got this one.
Fishing for fantasy.
Finally, fishing for fantasy. Let's be honest, your team's falling apart. It's in shambles. You've already lost the entire season, but let's save face, maybe steal a couple games towards the end here so we can feel good about it. Go into next season on a high. Take us away, Zach. Who is our quarterback?
So our only quarterback this week that we're recommending is the artist formerly known Matthew Ice, aka Matt Ryan. He's only rostered in 43.9% of leagues, less than half. So you can probably get him on the waiver wire. Maybe not if you run a 2-quarterback league, but definitely a 1-quarterback league. They play Dallas this week. Dallas's defense outside of 1 or 2 key players has looked relatively questionable since the bye. And I'm also kind of thinking that maybe Dallas has a get right game on offense. Plus, this is a quote-unquote revenge game with Dan Quinn being the Cowboys' defensive coordinator going against his former quarterback. So I expect Matt Ryan to put up maybe some ugly numbers to start the game, but definitely coming out with like 20 to 25 points at a minimum by the end of the game, just because he'll have a lot of opportunities to dink and dunk and really toss to some of his more talented players as well. What about running backs? Start us with the running backs, Rob.
All right, I'm gonna burn through the first 3. I don't think there's much to really talk about on these guys. Brandon Bolden for the Patriots, Harrison Stevenson, both banged up, so backup gets reps presumably. Patriots, so still risky play. You never know what Belichick's gonna do. Jordan Howard appears to be the guy while Miles Sanders is out. Philadelphia running backs, kind of hard to judge. It looks like the Eagles are maybe going to be running a lot more, so hopefully that ends up working out. Again, a little bit rough, hard to gauge. Mark Ingram, similar situation. Saints getting a little bit of a bump from not being on the Texans anymore. Still a little bit deeper, 14 touches, 5 catches, so flexible if you need some backups. Those are some fairly deeper running backs, but Zach, tell us about one of the less deep running backs that could get you some quality points.
So it's going to be Kenyon Drake, Raiders running back. He's only rostered in 55% of leagues. And since John Gruden has been, left, not retired, but left, quit, resigned, whatever it is that you want to phrase it, depending on what league circle you follow. Since he's been removed, Drake's gotten 21, 16, and 16 points in his last 3 games in PPR leagues. He's being utilized a lot more. He's still somehow only rostered in about half the leagues, at least according to ESPN, and he's getting lots of pass volume because of all the different firings, releases, suspensions, whatever it is you want to call it. Plus, Kenyon Drake should have been the 3rd down back from the get-go anyways, because Josh Jacobs is not a great pass catcher. Dude can churn out the ball on 1st and 2nd down. I do not trust him on 3rd. Well, neither does the new Raiders head coach. So pick up Kenyon Drake. That's a smart decision for the rest of the year, especially with the NFL being an injury nightmare. You know what I mean? Injury twilight zone. What about wide receivers, Rob? Let's start off with some wideouts.
All right. Rams wide receiver Van Jefferson, only owned in 43% of leagues. He is coming off of a 7-target game, and this was with a fairly bad offensive game for the Rams. And when I say fairly bad offensive game, I mean literal nightmare material. of an offensive game. And they're going to be going up against the secondary that just gave up 250 yards and a touchdown to Colt McCoy. So pretty favorable matchup. Van Jefferson also benefits from the fact that Deshaun Jackson is no longer on their team. So possibly some of those reps might go to him.
Next up, we have one of my favorite guys preseason and from last year, Brandon Ayuk, rostered in 45.5% of leagues. Dude has had 15 targets the last 2 weeks. A lot of people were saying, oh, there's not enough room for him and Debo and Kittle to all play together. But here's the thing. Debo has been hurt, injured at least 1.5 games, technically, over the past 2 weeks. And since then, Kittle and Ayuk have started to come about again. So maybe when Jimmy Garoppolo is not solely focusing on Deebo Samuel, the other players can live. Brandon Ayuk is currently alive again. He's Frankenstein. He's back from the dead, and the dude is good at football. Exclamation point, exclamation point. So definitely pick him up if somebody was too impatient and dropped him in your league.
Yep. And finally, Elijah Moore, wide receiver for the Jets. Now, this is kind of take it with a grain of salt because there are some unknowns and issues here. Corey Davis is back, and we are unsure how this is going to impact things. But his number was called last week, and wow, did he deliver. 7 catches, 84 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Most talented wide receiver on that team, but volume is an issue. Jets is an issue. I'm not sure how many 400-yard games in passing we can really bank on the Jets having. So a lot of questionable unknowns, but I mean, hey, if the Jets continue playing like this in offense, especially with being granted garbage times because of how bad their defense is, there could be some prospects on that team's wide receiver core.
And just to add to that, I do believe Zach Wilson is coming back this week, unfortunately. So it puts a little ding into Elijah Moore's prospects. But if he doesn't come back, or even if he does come back, I think Elijah Moore has shown enough over the past 3 weeks to definitely be somebody of whom can be a contributor. I will double down with Rob and suggest definitely go out there, get Elijah Moore. He's rostered in 15% of leagues. You have a really great value there. Tight end. First one that we're going to recommend is Dan Arnold. We've recommended him at least 1 or 2 times now, right? And
I think 3. I think this is the third.
I think 3. Yeah, I think this is the 3rd time. Second week in a row that we've talked about this dude. Pick him up. He's averaging 7.5 targets per game right now. With tight ends, most of the time you're not going to have a Kyle Pitts, a Travis Kelce, a Darren Waller. You're going to need to chase target volume, and that's exactly what you're doing with Dan Arnold. But Dan Arnold's putting up numbers. He really is in Jacksonville. He is looking like Trevor Lawrence's favorite or one of his favorite targets, especially since Marvin Jones got injured and has come back from injury and has not been great. Definitely go for Dan Arnold.
Also, Tyler Conklin of the Vikings, another guy who we've called a couple times, still only rostered in 27% of leagues. He's getting consistent targets from Kirk Cousins. Over the past 3 weeks, averaging around 10 points a game. Pretty solid floor. Should continue to see those targets. For whatever reason, some of the bigger playmakers in that offense are not being targeted much. Maybe they're being double covered. I'm not really sure what the situation is there, but Conklin is making an impact on fantasy.
And we have 2 defenses to finish out our podcast this week. First defense is going to be the Cleveland Browns. I mean, they kind of finally look like the Browns that we expected to see on defense. They've had some shades of that this year. But when the Browns offense clicks, a.k.a. sans Odell Beckham Jr., which they will be permanently now, their defense just seems to play well also. So not a great matchup against a good New England team, but Myles Garrett is a Greek god in every sense of the imagination. I mean, the man gets it done, and that entire defense is shut down. I think that they are going to have an awesome week against the Patriots.
And for those of you that are unaware, there is a ongoing joke in the NFL. Every single time that Myles Garrett goes sleeveless, he gets drug tested the next day.
Yep. Yeah, it's crazy. And it's always performance enhancing drugs. It's never like,
Yeah.
oh, you might have smoked weed. It's like, hey, stop doing steroids and HGH.
Yes, his arms are so large that the NFL just refuses to
insane.
believe it.
It's
By the way, I
insane.
think it was the Jaguars kicker after kicking their game winner in
Yeah.
London. He also got drug tested. I thought that was hilarious.
That was so funny.
Anyway, the second defense and special teams that we're going to recommend is not something that we saw coming, especially not early in this year. The Tennessee Titans only owned in 11.9% of leagues. In my leagues, they were actually the most picked up on waivers as of this week. So, wow. 4 of their last 5 games have been double-digit performances on defense. They have been averaging 3 sacks a game and over 2 turnovers a game. By the way, 3 defensive scores in those last 5 games. This defense is really starting to look like what we expected Mike Vrabel's defenses to look like over these past few years. They're actually starting to live up to that, and I think that they might be realizing now that they can't hide behind Derrick Henry anymore. Derrick Henry is a big enough man to hide your entire team behind, but I think this team understands that's not going to happen anymore. They got to make it to the Super Bowl without Derrick Henry to get him back. And I mean, hey, with the 6 to 10 week estimate, if they make it to the Super Bowl, he would be back by then, definitely. So
100%.
Could be
and
interesting.
then that'll be just enough time for the defense to be like, all right, Derrick Henry's got it, and then they lose the
And then
game.
they let up 59 points.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, those are going to be all of our fantasy recommendations this week. You're welcome for those 2 wins that we contributed to, and we apologize for those 4 losses that we handed you with our selections. Zach, you know what time it is. We have
Yes,
socials.
sir. Yeah, we do. We have socials officially. We have a TikTok. We have a Twitter. I am so far trying to find the best stuff to tweet out because it's more fun to have things that are worth tweeting. But I'm getting to the point where I'm just going to start tweeting nonsense. So if you guys are ready for it, all football-based things, go follow our Twitter, which has actually got a different name than the podcast because unfortunately Twitter only allows 20 characters for their usernames.
It's Beltway Babblers, if I recall.
Beltway Babblers. Exactly
Yeah.
right. That's what I was looking up right now.
So
It's
make sure you
Beltway Babblers.
smash that like button. You slap
Smash it.
that subscribe button. You slam that retweet button.
And then Twitter notifications, you press it.
Yeah, press it.
Boom. That's it. Done. Anyways, guys, as always, thank you so much for listening, taking the time out. I know we were short surgy this week, and we're a little shorter on our runtime in general this week. So, as always, thanks for taking the time to listen to us. I'm Zach Miles.
I'm Rob Sahutsky.
We'll see you next time.